Congratulations guys, we did it. The inflation numbers are going down, and just like magic, everyone's going to be able to afford a house once again. Interest rates are going to go back to 2%, and the cost of food is going to go back to the levels it was in the 1990s, and everything is going to be amazing. Well, I don't think it's going to quite turn out like that, and that's why I wanted to make today's video, because I think we can all get a little bit too excited about the new inflation report coming in at about a half a point lower than it was last month, which was 9.1%. Today it's 8.5% from the July numbers. Just because the overall number went down, guys, the two biggest contributors that make up for this number going down are fuel prices, meaning gas prices, and airfare travel, okay? Those two things actually went down significantly in July, and that really helped the CPI number fall. But if we dig a little deeper and you actually look at the CPI report for yourself, which I encourage you to do, it's not that difficult to understand, things like food are up, okay? Food prices are up 11% still, and housing and shelter still up 5.7%, right? And energy, meaning like your electric bill, is up 33%. So still, many of the things that we need in order to live our daily lives are still going up in price. They're not going down. And I think that this recent CPI report could mean an early celebration for too many, including the stock market, for example. You know, everybody's going to see this number and think, wow, everything's going to be returning back to normal soon enough. Now, sure, if this number continues to drop throughout the year, I think we could be on a path to some sort of recovery. But I think we're a long ways away from that, guys. This is the first time that the number has gone down since it started going up, and it didn't go down by that much. And when you factor in that two of the biggest things are airfare and fuel prices, I don't think that's really that big of a deal, because let's look at this for example. When I was on my way over to shoot this video, I saw the cheapest gas price now here in Miami is $3.99. Now that's a pretty big discount compared to what it was a month or two ago when it was $4.89 a gallon or $4.99 a gallon, or in some places over $5 a gallon. So yes, gas prices are going down. But now let's use a real estate analogy to this. So for example, a lot of people aren't buying right now because interest rates are too high, right? Okay, well, if interest rates go back to 2%, how many of you out there are going to be buying a house even at today's prices? Raise your hand, right? But probably everyone and their mother, just like what happened when interest rates actually were that low. If fuel prices continue to go down, which everybody wants, right? Everybody wants that to happen, then what's going to happen for the demand for fuel? It's going to go back up, right? So then fuel prices will just go back up. And we know the demand for food ain't going down anytime soon. The demand for, heating and cooling your house or your electric bill is not going to be going down anytime soon either. So most of the things that we really need that are causing high inflation right now are still going up, guys. And that's the important thing that we need to look at when deciphering this puzzle with the CPI numbers, because you can't be fooled by the overall big picture. You need to look into the details, and I'll have the report linked down below for you guys to check out if you want to go look at it yourself. It's really easy to read. You just click it and it shows you all the numbers of what went up and by how much month over month and year over year. And overall, the things that we need the most are still going up in price, not going down. And I don't believe that the Fed is going to be celebrating this just yet either. I believe that when they meet again next month in September, that most likely they'll still do another interest rate hike, because remember, their goal is 2% inflation. And right now, the official number is 8.5%. And that's with all these increased interest rates they have done. So how many more times they're going to have to raise it and by how much is anybody's guess. But the going theory from a lot of people that I agree with is that the interest rates are going to have to rise to the rate of inflation. So let's say they bring inflation down to 7% towards the end of the year, then interest rates need to match that in order to basically kill off this inflation. So I think we still have a long ways to go, even if things start looking optimistic with inflation going down. If we get the next report and the numbers are even lower than 8.5%, then we could be on the right track. But I think the Fed will continue to raise their rates until the inflation is squashed. And the same reason I don't want everybody to celebrate this is so many people out there in the comments and just in general think, oh, when we see these 100K, price cuts on houses that are $1 million, that's nothing. Or I saw, a 30K price cut on a house that's 600,000, it's still nothing. It's still super expensive. Right, it is still super expensive, but it's a change in the right direction, right? Similarly to this inflation problem. Is it going down by 0.5 point significant? Is that really going to change anything for you tomorrow? Probably not, but it's a step in the right direction, right? So that's the important thing to take away from what's happening with inflation. And by the way, guys, I came over to Miami Shores today to wash my Jeep. So this neighborhood I'm walking in today is close to Barry University over here in Miami Shores. And I've never actually walked through here before, so figured I'd take you guys through here today. So far, no houses for sale yet. And since one of the inflation factors that is continuing to go up is housing, guys, that's up a little over 5% still. Right now, in the United States, the average minimum wage worker cannot afford a 2-bedroom apartment rental anywhere in the US, in all 50 states, not even the cheapest ones like Arkansas or Missouri, Kansas, nowhere like that. You still need more than minimum wage to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, even in the cheapest places of the country. Just to put this into perspective, because let's say you need to have 30% of your income going towards rent. That's what it's supposed to be, right? Which we know a lot of people out there have to spend more than 30% of their income on rent, okay? But like here in Florida, for example, just to rent a studio apartment, on average, you need to make about 40 grand a year. You want a 1-bedroom? Bump it up to 44. 2-bedroom, you need to make 54K a year. 3-bedroom, you need to make 72K a year. Now, those are pretty high salaries when it comes to Florida, because everybody knows, and Florida is notorious for not paying as much as other states, right, when it comes to our wages here. So this is one of the issues that Florida has that a lot of people complain about, that they can't get a good enough paying job here. Well, guess what? These are going to be the type of figures you're going to be up against if you want to even rent something here in Florida. And especially if you're looking at a landlord or an apartment complex that requires you to make 3 times the monthly rent, which is a requirement for a lot of these institutional landlords or management companies. The only time you can usually get away with making less than that is if you're renting from an individual owner and they review your finances and they say it's okay. But just to put this study into perspective, guys, this was done by the National Low Income Housing Coalition, and they pretty much determined in this report that the average worker would need to make $28.52 per hour to afford a 2-bedroom and $21.25 per hour to afford a 1-bedroom apartment on average throughout the US. And this doesn't even say if they're talking before or after tax. So obviously it could be even more if we're talking after tax dollars here. And in this same article, guys, get this. It says that even 1-bedroom apartments are considered unaffordable for all low-wage workers, except for in 9% of counties throughout the US, meaning that almost everywhere in the country, the average worker that makes a low wage cannot afford even a 1-bedroom apartment. So the only thing below that is a studio apartment where, the entire unit is basically open. You have the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom, all basically in one room there, and that's your place. And the next step after that is the tent on the street, or the van down by the river, as some of you like to say. So that's not good news, that people are in the position where this is all they can afford now, which is hardly anything. So this is why I said in the beginning of the video that we don't want to celebrate these inflation numbers just yet, because the things that we really need that we cannot negotiate on, food, energy, and housing are still going up, even though a couple of other things are going down. But in the long run, guys, I don't know if this is really going to make a difference. We'll see. I think there's still a possibility that the inflation can still go higher even after having a lower month on record here. We'll see. Now, speaking of the housing market and the cost of housing, did you know that now, on average, 60% of the listings out there in the country are still on the market after 30 days? Now, in the past, this really wouldn't be that big of a deal because a lot of people forget that before the whole housing boom happened, homes used to sit on the market for 30, 60, sometimes even 90 days, and that was pretty normal for a sale to take place. You know, prior to all this mania happening, I've had listings sit that long in some cases just because there's too many places on the market. Buyers had a lot of options, and it could end up taking longer to sell a place because of that. You know, when there's too many choices, people are indecisive and don't just buy the first house they see, like we saw in this crazy uptick. But the reason why this number is significant is because this number hasn't been this high since the year 2000. So we're talking 22 years it's been that we've seen this many homes sit on the market for 30 days or longer. So I think that's one big indicator that points to just how much the housing market has been slowing down and how far demand has been going down overall. And of course, the main contributor to this is interest rates, because interest rates have been steadily going up, even though they dipped temporarily here for a little while. Until rates fall back down or prices go down, whichever comes first, then I think we're going to stay in this situation where we're going to see more listings continue to sit on the market like this. But literally the amount of listings that have been sitting on the market for more than 30 days jumped 12.5% just in July. So it will be interesting to watch these trends as well to see if this trend continues, that more homes continue to sit on the market as the months go by. So really what we're trying to figure out in a video like this is how bad is inflation and just how much is the housing market going to slow down and be affected by all these interest rate hikes. And so far, it seems like it's going to be affected quite a bit. And like we discussed in an earlier video, the full effect of these rate hikes haven't even really been felt in the housing market yet. It can take 6 months for these rate hikes to really be fully felt throughout the marketplace. So I still think, guys, regardless of what happens with inflation, we're not really going to see the full effects of what's happening with these rate hikes in contrast with the housing prices until towards the end of this year. I think once the end of this year comes and we get a better picture of what's going on with inflation and where the overall housing market is headed after the delayed effect of the rate hikes, I think by that point we'll be able to better forecast if prices will go up or down from there. Because right now there's just too many things to take into consideration that make it basically impossible to say with certainty which way it's going, one way or the other. And like always, depending on where you live, it can be quite different. I think no matter what, the markets that saw the biggest booms are going to see the biggest busts, and the markets that didn't see the big booms, maybe they'll have a small little correction or maybe nothing at all. So it just depends. And that's why you have to look at things like the recession and homes sitting on the market longer as actually an opportunity for you if you're a home buyer and even if you're a seller. Sometimes people ask, well, if I sell next year, is that going to be better than selling right now? Well, no, not really. Because now chances are you'll probably be able to get more money than you can a year from now. But at the same time, if you're going to buy a new home, then you should also be able to have more choices when looking for your new home as well. So it's a balancing act, guys. There's really no right answer for anybody. It just depends on what you're looking to do as an individual, right? Now, one thing I've been talking a little bit about lately are HELOC loans, or home equity lines of credit. That's what HELOC stands for. It's interesting because I read today about somebody that decided to take a HELOC loan even though he doesn't need it. He said he has no debt and he has good credit, but he decided to take a HELOC loan anyways because of his uncertainty about the economy, and supposedly he has a decent amount of equity in his property where he can do this and feel comfortable. But the thing that I think is crazy about this, guys, is when we're heading into a recession like this and there's so much uncertainty out there, I think the last thing that you should do that makes any financial sense is to bring more debt into your life, at least especially bad debt like this that doesn't help you get ahead in any way. But apparently this guy's reasoning for taking on this loan was because he said the economy is changing and insurance companies do not pay you for having low income or no job. So he took out a HELOC just in case something happens. So to me, this is totally backwards, guys. First of all, this guy must be worried that he might lose his job and that we're headed into a recession. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be thinking like this. That's my first thought. And the second thing is, if we do head into a recession and you lose your job, what is your plan? Your home's probably going to lose value. When economic times are bad, your home's value is going to be going down, not up. And if they keep increasing interest rates, your HELOC payment's going to keep going up as well. So to me, this makes no sense. And I feel like if you're doing so well in life and you make decent money and your credit's good and you don't have any debt, why don't you have more in savings? You know, why aren't you preparing for a rainy day on your own? And I think this is part of the bigger problem that we have in our economy in general with the way people think, like, oh, if I get into trouble, I'll just go into debt to try to fix it, right? Everybody relies on taking out debt now in order to fix it. Oh, I can't pay for this right now, so I'll put it on the credit card. Just like these vacations, you know, these revenge travelers putting these vacations on the credit card that they can't really afford. It's the same mentality that somebody that otherwise you would think would be pretty smart and is doing pretty well in life is doing something that's not so smart, in my opinion. I think that if you're going to use something like this, like we talked about in the last video, it should be to make, you know, much needed improvements to your home that you're going to be able to get back when you go to sell, or if you're going to use some money for another investment that will offset the cost of the HELOC and essentially pay its own way. You're going to buy a cash flowing asset that will go up in value as well, that can pay off that HELOC payment. Because otherwise, to me, the whole thing just seems stupid. Like once a month, I'm getting one of these letters in the mail to try and take out one of these HELOC payments, and I'm not doing it. I don't need to do it, you know? I have saved for a rainy day. I'm not worried about a rainy day because I have prepared for it manually. I'm not relying on extra debt against the value of my home to pay for my bills, okay? That seems like last resort, worst case scenario kind of thing. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. And to top things off, it seems like the institutional investment problem is just going to continue to get worse, guys, because clearly our government's not doing anything to, you know, help us out with this. And this is a capitalist country, and institutions and corporations right now are fully legally able to buy real estate just like you and me can. And so there is a new startup apparently that's looking to invest in real estate. Of course, because that's like the new hot ticket item. It seems like real estate is crazier than Bitcoin now. Everybody wants a piece of it. And this startup is aimed at people that can't afford to invest in a property on their own. So right off the bat, it sounds like a REIT, right? Something that you would buy in the stock market. But I guess it's a little bit different because the idea behind this is that you gradually invest what you can and you build a real estate portfolio with this company, and then at the end you hope to make enough profit where you'll have a down payment on your own home. Let's talk for a minute about how much this doesn't make sense. Basically, what you're doing is you're competing with yourself if you invest in something like this. Oh, I can't afford to buy an investment property. I can't afford to buy one of these houses on my own, right? Because it's too expensive. So let me invest in this instead so I can make some profit and hopefully get there. Well, okay, but what is that going to do? It's going to make the cost of housing continue to go up, because as more places are taken off the market and as these big startups and institutions buy more real estate, it's just going to put us right back in the situation that we've been in with low inventory and make that even worse and drive the cost of housing up. It's just like people that have their pension funds, and I know you don't get to decide where that money goes unless you're one of the managers of these pensions, but for example, people that have pensions, their pensions invest in things like REITs and these institutional real estate companies in order to make a return. And similarly, just like we talked about in the mobile home video, that these companies buy up the mobile home parks and turn around and raise the rents for no other reason other than they can. And the same thing is going to continue to happen the more that people invest in these kind of things. So the secret is out that people in general are starting to see real estate as an excellent investment vehicle, and I agree that it is. I am a real estate investor as well. But the more people that invest in it, then the more prices are going to continue to go up. So you're kind of like shooting yourself in the foot, because you're investing in real estate so that way you can eventually afford to buy your own home. But by doing so, you may end up actually pricing yourself out of the market. So it's one of those things. This is the world we live in now. Things are so crazy, guys. I don't even know where to begin half the time. But these are the things that we're dealing with today. And all we can do is try to pay attention to what's going on out there and hope we can all make the best decisions for our own lives. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, please consider subscribing to the channel and check out my next entertaining or helpful video on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.